Number 1. The Philadelphia Experiment, 1943. The Philadelphia Experiment is one of the most enduring legends in military conspiracy theory. According to the story, in October 1943, the United States Navy conducted a secret experiment at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard, attempting to make the destroyer escort USS Eldridge invisible to enemy radar. The experiment allegedly used powerful electromagnetic generators to bend light around the ship, but something went catastrophically wrong. Witnesses claim the ship not only became invisible, but completely vanished from Philadelphia and teleported to Norfolk, Virginia, hundreds of miles away, before reappearing minutes later. More disturbing, crew members were reportedly found fused into the ship's metal structure or driven insane by the experience. The Navy has always denied the experiment occurred, but the legend persists. The origins of the Philadelphia experiment story can be traced to Carl Allen, also known as Carlos Allende. In 1955, Allen sent letters to astronomer Morris Jessup, claiming to have witnessed the experiment as a crew member on a nearby merchant ship. Allen described seeing the Eldridge surrounded by a greenish fog before it disappeared completely. He claimed to have later encountered crew members who had been aboard the Eldridge and who told him horrifying stories about what happened during the experiment. According to Allen's account, the experiment was based on Einstein's unified field theory, which attempted to link electromagnetism and gravity. Navy scientists allegedly believed they could use powerful electromagnetic fields to bend light around an object, making it invisible. The equipment installed on the USS Eldridge included massive generators that created an electromagnetic bubble around the ship. When the generators were activated, the ship was supposed to simply disappear from radar detection. But the experiment went far beyond making the ship radar invisible. Witnesses, including Allen, claimed the ship became optically invisible, as well disappearing from sight, as a strange green fog surrounded it. Then, even more impossibly, the Eldridge vanished completely from its berth in Philadelphia. According to the story, the ship materialized briefly in Norfolk, Virginia, where it was spotted at the naval base there, before vanishing again and reappearing back in Philadelphia. The entire incident allegedly lasted only a few minutes, but those minutes changed the lives of everyone aboard. The effects on the crew were described as horrifying. Some sailors were said to have become fused into the metal structure of the ship, their bodies merged with steel bulkheads and decks. Others allegedly caught fire and burned, despite there being no apparent source of ignition. Several crew members reportedly went insane during or immediately after the experiment. Some sailors who survived physically were said to have experienced ongoing strange phenomena, including spontaneously fading in and out of visibility or walking through solid objects. Allen claimed that survivors of the experiment were quietly discharged from the Navy and scattered to prevent them from talking about what happened. The Navy allegedly classified all records of the experiment and worked to suppress any information about the incident. Allen suggested that the military had accidentally discovered a way to shift matter between dimensions or parallel realities, but that the technology was too dangerous and unpredictable to use. Morris Jessup, the astronomer who received Allen's letters, became fascinated by the claims. Jessup had written books about UFOs and unconventional physics and saw the Philadelphia experiment as potentially validating his theories. But Jessup died in 1959 under circumstances that some considered suspicious. His death was ruled a suicide, but conspiracy theorists suggested he was silenced for knowing too much about the Philadelphia experiment. The United States Navy has consistently denied that any such experiment took place. Naval records show that the USS Eldridge was not in Philadelphia in October 1943, but was on shakedown cruises in the Bahamas. The Navy states that no invisibility experiments were conducted on any ship and that the entire story is fabrication. Skeptics point out that Carl Allen was known to be unreliable, with a history of making extraordinary claims without evidence. However, believers in the Philadelphia experiment argue that the Navy would naturally deny any experiment that resulted in deaths and demonstrated technology far beyond what was publicly known in 1943. They point to the military's history of conducting secret experiments and classified research programs. The fact that Einstein had worked on unified field theory and that the Navy did conduct radar and electromagnetic research during World War II provides just enough plausibility to keep the legend alive. Some researchers have suggested that if the Philadelphia experiment occurred, it may have accidentally created a temporary portal or dimensional rift. The extreme electromagnetic fields could have warped spacetime in localized areas, creating conditions where normal physics broke down. The ship and crew might have been subjected to forces that pulled them partially out of our dimension, causing the reported effects of invisibility, teleportation, and physical fusion with matter. Alternative theories propose that the Philadelphia experiment was a misunderstood or exaggerated account of actual degaussing experiments. Degaussing involves using electromagnetic fields to demagnetize a ship's hull, making it harder to detect with magnetic mines. Such experiments were genuinely conducted during World War II. A degaussing experiment could have created unusual visual effects or electromagnetic phenomena that witnesses misinterpreted as the ship becoming invisible or teleporting. The Philadelphia experiment has inspired numerous books, movies, and television documentaries. The story captures the imagination because it combines military secrecy, cutting-edge physics, and unexplained phenomena. Whether the experiment actually occurred or is an elaborate hoax remains one of the great mysteries of 20th century military history. The tale serves as a reminder that the pursuit of invisibility technology and the manipulation of electromagnetic fields might open doors to realities we are not prepared to face. Experiment number 2. CERN Large Hadron Collider, 2008 to present. The Large Hadron Collider, operated by CERN near Geneva, Switzerland, is the world's largest and most powerful particle accelerator. Since beginning operations in 2008, the LHC has been at the center of conspiracy theories, claiming the experiments conducted there have opened portals to other dimensions or parallel universes. While CERN scientists dismiss these theories as misunderstandings of particle physics, unusual incidents and strange phenomena reported near the facility have fueled speculation that the collider's high-energy collisions are tearing holes in the fabric of spacetime. The Large Hadron Collider is a circular tunnel 17 miles in circumference, buried hundreds of feet underground. Inside the tunnel, protons are accelerated to 99.99% the speed of light and then smashed together. These collisions recreate conditions that existed fractions of a second after the Big Bang, allowing scientists to study fundamental particles and forces. In 2012, the LHC successfully detected the Higgs boson, confirming a major prediction of the standard model of particle physics. But some theoretical physicists have suggested that the extreme energies achieved in the LHC could produce exotic particles or phenomena beyond current understanding. String theory predicts the existence of extra spatial dimensions beyond the three we experience. Some models suggest that at high enough energies, particles could leak into these extra dimensions, or that the collider might create microscopic black holes that would evaporate almost instantly. While these are legitimate areas of scientific speculation, conspiracy theorists have interpreted them as evidence that CERN is deliberately trying to open portals to other dimensions. Several unusual incidents at CERN have been cited as evidence of dimensional breaches. In 2009, the LHC experienced a major malfunction shortly after beginning operations. A piece of bread dropped by a bird caused an electrical fault that temporarily shut down the collider. Some conspiracy theorists claimed this was not an accident, but sabotage by time travelers from the future, trying to prevent CERN from creating a dimensional catastrophe. This theory gained attention when a pair of physicists jokingly published a paper suggesting the universe itself might be conspiring to prevent the Higgs boson discovery. In 2015, a video surfaced allegedly showing a strange cloud formation above the CERN facility during a high-energy collision test. The clouds appeared to form a swirling vortex that some interpreted as a portal opening in the sky. CERN explained this as a natural cloud formation, coinciding with the test, but believers in the portal theory saw it as evidence that the collider's energies were affecting the atmosphere or opening rifts to other realities. Residents near CERN have reported unusual phenomena, including strange sounds, electromagnetic disturbances, and unusual lights in the sky, particularly during high-energy test runs. Some claim to have experienced missing time or disorientation when the collider is operating. While these reports are anecdotal and unverified, they have contributed to theories that the LHC is affecting local spacetime in ways that scientists either don't understand or are keeping secret. One of the most disturbing theories involves the Mandela effect, a phenomenon where large groups of people remember historical events or details differently than documented fact. Some conspiracy theorists claim the Mandela effect is caused by CERN's experiments, creating shifts between parallel universes or alternate timelines. According to this theory, each time the LHC conducts certain experiments, it causes reality to split or merge, affecting collective memory. While there is no scientific evidence supporting this claim, it has become a popular explanation among those who experience the Mandela effect. CERN scientists have repeatedly addressed these concerns, explaining that the energies involved in particle collisions, while extreme on a subatomic scale, are actually quite small in absolute terms. Cosmic rays naturally occurring high-energy particles from space regularly strike Earth's atmosphere with energies far exceeding anything the LHC can produce. If particle collisions at LHC energies could open dimensional portals, cosmic rays would have been opening them constantly for billions of years. The fact that Earth still exists suggests the collider poses no such danger. However, some researchers have noted that while cosmic rays may have higher energies, the LHC produces controlled collisions in a confined space, with detectors measuring every aspect of the interaction. It's theoretically possible, though extremely unlikely, that certain specific conditions created only in controlled laboratory settings could produce effects that random cosmic ray collisions do not. This slim possibility keeps the door open for speculation about unknown phenomena. The search for extra dimensions is actually a legitimate area of research at CERN. Some experiments are designed to look for signs that gravity is leaking into extra dimensions, which could explain why gravity is so much weaker than other fundamental forces. If extra dimensions exist and are accessible at the energy scales the LHC can probe, it might be possible to detect their presence. But detecting evidence of extra dimensions is vastly different from opening portals to them. Another area of speculation involves the potential creation of strangelets, hypothetical particles made of strange quarks that could theoretically convert normal matter into strange matter. Before the LHC began operations, some worried this could trigger a chain reaction that would convert the entire Earth. Physicists calculated that this scenario is impossible, based on our understanding of particle physics and observations of cosmic ray collisions. Nevertheless, the fear persisted in popular imagination. CERN has been remarkably transparent about its research publishing findings and making data available to the scientific community. The organization regularly hosts public tours and educational programs to demystify the work conducted at the facility. But this transparency has not stopped conspiracy theories from flourishing. If anything, the complex physics and exotic phenomena studied at CERN provide fertile ground for speculation about hidden agendas and secret discoveries. The Large Hadron Collider represents humanity's most ambitious attempt to understand the fundamental nature of reality. In pushing the boundaries of particle physics, CERN scientists are genuinely exploring questions about extra dimensions, parallel universes, and the structure of space-time. While the conspiracy theories about dimensional portals and universe hopping are almost certainly unfounded, they reflect genuine public fascination with these profound scientific questions. Whether CERN has opened doors to other dimensions or simply opened our understanding of this one, the experiments continue probing the very fabric of existence. Experiment number 3. The Montauk Project, 1970s to 1980s. The Montauk Project is an alleged series of secret government experiments conducted at Camp Hero or Montauk Air Force Station on Long Island, New York, from the late 1970s through the mid-1980s. According to conspiracy theorists, these experiments involved time travel, mind control, and opening portals to other dimensions. Whistleblowers claim the project was a continuation of the Philadelphia experiment, using advanced technology to manipulate space and time. While no concrete evidence of the Montauk Project has ever been presented, the stories involve specific details about dimensional rifts and contact with alternate realities that have made the legend one of the most elaborate conspiracy theories in modern times. The Montauk Air Force Station was a real military facility that operated a powerful radar installation during the Cold War. The base was officially decommissioned in 1969, but conspiracy theorists claim it continued operating in secret for classified experiments. The massive SAGE radar system remained on site, providing theorists with a plausible explanation for the powerful electromagnetic equipment allegedly used in dimensional experiments. According to Preston Nichols and Peter Moon, who published books about the Montauk Project in the 1990s, the experiments built on technology allegedly recovered from the Philadelphia experiment. Scientists had supposedly learned how to use powerful electromagnetic fields to bend spacetime, creating portals that could access different points in time and even alternate dimensions. The project allegedly received unlimited secret funding and operated without oversight from elected officials. The experiments reportedly focused on several areas. Time travel experiments allegedly allowed operators to send people forward and backward through time, observing different periods of history. Mind control research supposedly used electromagnetic radiation to influence thoughts and implant false memories in test subjects. But the most disturbing claims involved dimensional portal experiments, where researchers allegedly opened doorways to parallel universes and alternate realities. Witnesses, including Nichols, claim to have seen portals materialize in the underground laboratories beneath Camp Hero. These portals appeared as shimmering distortions in space, through which other realities could be observed and accessed. Experimenters allegedly sent probes and eventually human subjects through the portals to explore what lay beyond. Some of these explorers encountered strange entities and alien landscapes that suggested they had entered dimensions vastly different from our own. One particularly detailed account describes an experiment where a young psychic was used to amplify the portal-generating equipment with his mind. The boy allegedly had powerful telekinetic and telepathic abilities that, when enhanced by the technology, could manifest physical objects from thought. During one experiment, the psychic accidentally created a massive creature that emerged from the portal, threatening everyone in the facility. The monster was only stopped when researchers convinced the boy to imagine it away, demonstrating the dangerous potential of combining human consciousness with dimensional technology. The Montauk Project allegedly involved collaboration with extraterrestrial beings who had their own interest in dimensional technology. Some accounts claim that gray aliens worked alongside human scientists, providing advanced knowledge about manipulating spacetime. The aliens supposedly had their own agenda, using the portals to access Earth from their home dimension or timeline. This cooperation between humans and aliens represents one of the more fantastical elements of the Montauk mythology. The project reportedly came to an abrupt end in 1983 when an experiment went catastrophically wrong. A portal that was opened could not be closed and began expanding, threatening to tear a permanent rift in spacetime. In desperation, researchers destroyed the equipment, causing the entire underground facility to collapse. The base was then permanently sealed, and all records of the experiments were destroyed. Participants were allegedly subjected to mind-wiping techniques to erase their memories of what had occurred. However, many supposed participants claim their memories eventually returned in fragments. Preston Nichols reports undergoing therapy to recover suppressed memories of his time at Montauk. These recovered memories form the basis for the detailed accounts of the experiments, though skeptics note that recovered memories are notoriously unreliable and can be influenced by suggestion, expectation, and exposure to related stories. The evidence for the Montauk Project is entirely testimonial. No documents, photographs, or physical evidence has ever been produced. The main sources are books by Nichols and Moon that read more like science fiction than documentary accounts. Investigations of the Camp Hero site have found no evidence of underground laboratories or advanced technology. The buildings that remain are consistent with a standard Cold War-era radar station with no indication of secret experiments. Skeptics point out that the Montauk Project story combines elements from various science fiction sources, including the Philadelphia experiment legend, government mind control programs like MKUltra, and popular fiction about time travel and alternate dimensions. The story may represent a modern mythology that expresses fears about government secrecy, military experimentation, and the dangers of advanced technology rather than actual events. Nevertheless, the Montauk Project legend has had significant cultural impact. It has inspired novels, television shows, and continues to be discussed in conspiracy theory communities. The ruins of Camp Hero are now part of a state park, but remain associated with paranormal activity. Visitors report unusual electromagnetic anomalies, strange sounds, and feelings of disorientation, particularly near the old radar tower and rumored underground installations. The Montauk Project represents the ultimate cautionary tale about dimensional experimentation. If the stories are true, they demonstrate that opening portals to other dimensions without understanding what lies beyond is incredibly dangerous. The alleged consequences include the unleashing of monsters, the corruption of time and space, and potential destruction of reality itself. Whether these warnings are based on actual events or are purely fictional, the Montauk legend reminds us that some experiments might be too dangerous to attempt. Experiment number 4. The Nazi Bell Die Glocke, 1940s. Die Glocke, or the bell, is allegedly a secret Nazi scientific device developed in the final years of World War II. According to claims made primarily by Polish journalist Igor Witkowski, the device was created as part of a classified weapons program conducted in underground facilities in occupied Poland. The bell supposedly generated powerful rotating electromagnetic fields that produced strange anti-gravity effects and potentially opened gateways to other dimensions. While mainstream historians consider the Nazi bell to be a hoax or misidentified conventional project, believers argue it represents Nazi Germany's most advanced and dangerous technological achievement. The story of Die Glocke emerges from claims made by Igor Witkowski in his 1997 Polish language book. Witkowski stated he was shown classified transcripts from interrogations of former Nazi SS officer Jakob Spornberg, who was tried and executed for war crimes after World War II. According to these alleged transcripts, Spornberg described a top-secret project called Die Glocke that was conducted in a facility near the Wenceslas mine in Lower Silesia, which is now part of Poland. The bell device itself was described as approximately 9 feet tall and bell-shaped, constructed of heavy metal. The device consisted of 2 counter-rotating cylinders filled with a mercury-like substance codenamed Zerum 525. When the cylinders were spun at high speed in opposite directions, the device supposedly generated powerful electromagnetic fields that produced extraordinary effects, including anti-gravity levitation and possible manipulation of space-time itself. According to Witkowski's account, the experiments with Die Glocke were extremely dangerous. Scientists and test subjects exposed to the device suffered severe health effects, including cell damage, nerve degeneration, and death. Animals placed near the operating bell died within hours or days, showing symptoms consistent with severe radiation poisoning. But the radiation was unlike anything produced by known radioactive materials, suggesting the device was affecting matter and biology through unknown physical mechanisms. The most extraordinary claims involve the device's alleged effects on the fabric of spacetime. Witnesses supposedly described seeing purple or violet glowing emanations from the bell when it operated. Objects near the device reportedly levitated, defying gravity. Some accounts suggest matter itself was transmuted, with different substances fusing together or changing their atomic structure. Time dilation effects were allegedly observed, where time appeared to move at different rates near the activated device compared to surrounding areas. Some researchers have interpreted these alleged effects as evidence that Die Glocke was creating localized distortions in spacetime, possibly opening small portals or gateways to other dimensions. The counter-rotating electromagnetic fields might have been warping the fabric of reality in ways that allowed brief connections to parallel universes or alternate dimensions. If true, this would represent the most advanced understanding of dimensional physics achieved during the 1940s, decades ahead of mainstream scientific knowledge. The Nazi scientists working on Die Glocke were supposedly led by SS General Hans Kammler, who oversaw many of Nazi Germany's most secret weapons projects. Kammler disappeared at the end of World War II, and his fate remains unknown. Some conspiracy theorists suggest he escaped with the Bell device and continued research either in South America or Antarctica. Others propose he was captured by American or Soviet forces, and his knowledge contributed to secret Cold War projects. The fate of Die Glocke itself is part of the mystery. According to some accounts, the device was destroyed by retreating Nazi forces to prevent it from falling into Allied hands. Other versions claim it was successfully evacuated and disappeared along with Kammler. Some UFO researchers have suggested Die Glocke was the basis for flying saucer technology, and that bell-shaped UFOs reported after World War II were actually craft powered by anti-gravity propulsion derived from the bell. Physical evidence for Die Glocke is limited to circumstantial remains. A concrete structure known as the henge near the alleged test site has unusual features, including reinforced construction and anchor points, that some interpret as designed to secure a device for testing, but mainstream archaeologists identify the henge as a conventional industrial structure with no connection to exotic weapons research. Critics of the Die Glocke story point out that all information comes from a single source, Igor Witkowski, who claims to have seen documents he cannot produce. The alleged SS interrogation transcripts have never been verified to exist. No other witnesses or documentary evidence supports the existence of such a device. Mainstream historians note that while Nazi Germany did conduct advanced weapons research, including jet aircraft and ballistic missiles, there is no credible evidence of anti-gravity or dimensional portal technology. Some skeptics suggest Die Glocke may be a misidentified or exaggerated account of real Nazi scientific programs. The description bears some resemblance to centrifuge technology used for uranium enrichment. The mercury-like substance could refer to attempts to develop liquid metal cooling systems or electromagnetic equipment. Health effects on researchers could result from radiation exposure or toxic materials. The legend may represent a kernel of truth about conventional research that has been embellished into an exotic weapons myth. However, believers argue that the specificity of the accounts and the disappearance of key personnel like Kammler suggest something extraordinary was being developed. They point to the fact that both American and Soviet forces aggressively sought Nazi scientists and technology after the war. If Die Glocke represented a genuine breakthrough in physics, it would have been among the most valuable prizes of Operation Paperclip and similar programs to capture German scientific knowledge. The concept of Die Glocke has captured public imagination and inspired numerous books, documentaries, and fictional treatments. The device represents the ultimate Nazi superweapon, a technology so advanced it could have changed the outcome of the war if developed earlier. The idea that Nazi scientists were experimenting with dimensional portals adds a science fiction element that makes the story compelling, even if evidence remains elusive. Whether Die Glocke actually existed or is an elaborate modern myth, the legend serves as a reminder of the secretive weapons research conducted during World War II and the gaps in historical knowledge about classified projects. The story also illustrates how the pursuit of ultimate weapons might lead researchers into territories of physics that blur the line between science and what seems like magic. If Nazi scientists were truly attempting to open doorways to other dimensions, they were experimenting with forces that, even today, remain barely understood and potentially catastrophic. Experiment number 5. The Hutchison Effect, 1979 to present. The Hutchison Effect is a collection of phenomena allegedly discovered by Canadian inventor John Hutchison beginning in 1979. Hutchison claims that by combining various electrical devices, including Tesla coils, Van de Graaff generators, and RF equipment, he accidentally created conditions that produced anti-gravity effects, metal fusion, and spontaneous levitation of objects. Some researchers have suggested these effects indicate the opening of microscopic dimensional portals or localized distortions in space-time. While Hutchison has filmed his experiments and attracted scientific interest, the effects have never been independently replicated, leading many to conclude they are tricks or misinterpretations. John Hutchison was a self-taught experimenter, fascinated by Nikola Tesla's work on electromagnetic phenomena. In his Vancouver apartment, Hutchison assembled a cluttered laboratory filled with various electrical equipment purchased from surplus sources. He had multiple Tesla coils, several Van de Graaff generators, signal generators, and other high-voltage and radio frequency devices. Hutchison would run different combinations of this equipment, simultaneously creating a chaotic electromagnetic environment. In 1979, while operating several devices at once, Hutchison noticed strange phenomena occurring in his laboratory. Objects would spontaneously levitate, rising into the air and floating without any visible means of support. Heavy metal objects, including weights and tools, defied gravity, hovering in mid-air. Hutchison began documenting these effects with still cameras and video, establishing what would become known as the Hutchison Effect. The phenomena Hutchison reported went beyond simple levitation. Different metals would allegedly fuse together at room temperature without any heat applied. Aluminum and steel would merge as if they had melted and cooled together, yet there was no evidence of melting. Wood would embed into metal, and vice versa, suggesting matter was becoming permeable or passing through dimensional barriers. Water in containers would swirl upward, defying gravity and form unusual patterns. Most dramatically, Hutchison captured on video what appeared to be objects teleporting or phasing in and out of visibility. Items would seem to vanish from one location and reappear elsewhere in the laboratory. Hutchison interpreted these effects as evidence that the combination of electromagnetic fields in his laboratory was creating localized distortions in space-time. He theorized that zero-point energy or exotic quantum effects were being triggered, allowing matter to briefly transition between dimensions. The videos Hutchison produced, showing levitating objects and other anomalies, attracted attention from military and scientific communities. In the 1980s, representatives from the United States Army and defense contractors visited Hutchison's laboratory to witness demonstrations. Some observers confirmed seeing anomalous effects, though they could not explain them. The potential military applications of antigravity or matter manipulation technology made the Hutchison effect a subject of classified interest. However, attempts by others to replicate the Hutchison effect failed consistently. Scientists who examined Hutchison's equipment and methods could not produce the same phenomena in their own laboratories. Skeptical investigators suggested the effect seen in Hutchison's videos could be explained by conventional means, including hidden magnets, strings, camera tricks, or deliberate deception. The fact that Hutchison himself could not reliably reproduce the effects on demand raised questions about their authenticity. Hutchison insisted the effects were real but unpredictable. He claimed that the specific combination of devices operating at particular frequencies in a specific configuration created the necessary conditions. Even slight variations would prevent the phenomena from occurring. This explanation was convenient for explaining why others could not replicate his work, but frustrated scientists who require repeatability as a standard of validity. Several prominent researchers have examined the Hutchison effect claims. Some concluded Hutchison genuinely observed unexplained phenomena, and that the electromagnetic environment in his laboratory might have created unusual conditions not yet understood by conventional physics. Others determined the effects were fraudulent, using stage magic techniques to create illusions that appeared paranormal. The controversy remains unresolved, with passionate advocates and critics on both sides. From a dimensional physics perspective, if the Hutchison effect is genuine, it could represent the first laboratory demonstration of microscale portal formation or dimensional overlap. The chaotic electromagnetic fields might be creating brief windows where normal spacetime breaks down, allowing matter to exhibit impossible behaviors. Objects could be shifting partially into adjacent dimensions, making them appear to levitate or pass through solid matter. The fusion of different metals without heat could occur if atoms are brought into contact through dimensional shortcuts rather than conventional spatial proximity. Theoretical physicist Jack Sarfati examined the Hutchison effect and proposed it might involve manipulation of the quantum vacuum. The electromagnetic fields could be extracting zero-point energy or affecting the Casimir effect in ways that alter gravitational and inertial forces on objects. While speculative, this theoretical framework suggests the Hutchison effect, if real, could point toward revolutionary physics involving dimensional aspects of reality. The phenomenon has had cultural impact, appearing in television documentaries and discussions of fringe science. The Hutchison effect represents the archetype of the lone inventor making extraordinary discoveries in a homemade laboratory. Whether the effects are genuine breakthroughs, elaborate hoaxes, or misinterpretations of mundane phenomena, the story illustrates the tension between established science and claims of revolutionary discoveries that cannot be conventionally replicated. John Hutchison continues to maintain that the effects are real and that suppression by authorities prevents full disclosure of the technology. Skeptics argue that decades without independent replication proves the Hutchison effect is not genuine physics. The truth likely lies somewhere between these extremes, with some genuine anomalous observations mixed with exaggeration, misinterpretation, and possibly intentional deception. Until the phenomena can be reliably reproduced and studied under controlled conditions, the Hutchison effect remains one of the most controversial claims in experimental physics and alleged dimensional research. Experiment number 6. CIA Gateway Process, 1980s. The Gateway Process is a training system developed by the Monroe Institute and studied by the CIA in the 1980s. Declassified documents reveal the CIA investigated whether certain consciousness techniques, including binaural beats and meditation, could allow operatives to achieve out-of-body experiences and potentially access other dimensions or planes of existence. While presented as consciousness research, some interpretations suggest the gateway process was an attempt to send human awareness into alternate realities or parallel dimensions. The CIA's own analysis document describes reality as a hologram and suggests consciousness can transcend normal spacetime limitations. The Monroe Institute was founded by Robert Monroe, an executive who in 1958 began experiencing spontaneous out-of-body experiences. Monroe developed audio technologies using binaural beats, patterns of sound, at slightly different frequencies played to each ear that supposedly induce altered states of consciousness. Monroe claimed these techniques allowed individuals to achieve controlled out-of-body experiences, where consciousness could travel beyond the physical body and explore non-physical dimensions. By the 1970s, Monroe had systematized his techniques into a training program called the Gateway Experience. Participants would listen to specially designed audio programs featuring binaural beats and guided meditation while lying in isolation chambers. Monroe claimed successful practitioners could achieve various states of expanded consciousness, including remote viewing, time travel of awareness, and contact with non-physical entities existing in other dimensions. The CIA became interested in the gateway process during the early 1980s as part of broader research into psychic phenomena and unconventional intelligence-gathering methods. The agency was exploring whether consciousness-based techniques could provide operational advantages, such as remote viewing of enemy installations or accessing information through non-conventional means. In 1983, the CIA commissioned Army Lieutenant Colonel Wayne McDonnell to evaluate the gateway process. McDonnell's report titled, "Analysis and Assessment of Gateway Process" is remarkable for its scientific and philosophical depth. Rather than dismissing the Monroe Institute's claims, McDonnell took them seriously and attempted to construct a theoretical framework explaining how consciousness might transcend physical limitations. The report draws on quantum mechanics, holographic theory, and consciousness studies to suggest that reality itself might be a holographic projection, and that human consciousness could potentially access information from any point in spacetime. According to McDonnell's analysis, the gateway process works by synchronizing both hemispheres of the brain through binaural beats, creating a coherent consciousness state. This synchronized state allegedly allows consciousness to resonate at frequencies that match other dimensions or planes of reality. Once properly trained individuals might be able to project their awareness beyond the physical body, accessing information from remote locations, different time periods, or even parallel dimensions. The theoretical model presented in the CIA report describes the universe as a vast hologram, where every part contains information about the whole. Consciousness, according to this view, is not limited to the physical brain, but is a fundamental aspect of reality that can interact with the holographic structure. By achieving specific altered states through the gateway process, practitioners might access the holographic database of reality itself, gaining knowledge about past, present, future, and alternate dimensions. The CIA report acknowledges that these concepts push the boundaries of accepted science. But McDonnell argues the theoretical framework is consistent with cutting-edge physics, including quantum mechanics, and the holographic principle proposed by physicists like David Bohm. The report suggests that further research into consciousness and dimensional access could yield significant intelligence capabilities if the underlying principles prove valid. What makes the gateway process particularly relevant to dimensional research is the explicit claim that consciousness can access parallel realities or alternate dimensions. Monroe Institute practitioners reported encounters with non-physical entities, visions of alternate timelines, and experiences suggesting multiple versions of reality exist simultaneously. If these reports reflect genuine experiences rather than hallucinations or fantasies, they would indicate consciousness has the ability to navigate dimensional structures beyond normal physical space. The CIA's practical interest in the gateway process appears to have focused on remote viewing and intelligence-gathering applications. The agency wanted to know if trained operatives could use consciousness techniques to spy on enemy facilities or predict future events. Several CIA officers participated in Monroe Institute training, and some claimed to achieve out-of-body experiences and remote viewing successes. However, the results were inconsistent, and the program's effectiveness remained controversial. By the mid-1980s, the CIA's formal interest in the Gateway process and similar consciousness research programs declined. The agency shifted resources away from psychic research and toward more conventional intelligence methods. The Gateway report was classified and remained secret until being declassified in 2000, with a notable missing page often pointed to by conspiracy theorists who wonder what information was too sensitive to release. The missing page has fueled speculation that the CIA discovered something extraordinary about dimensional access through consciousness, but chose to keep it classified. Some theorists suggest the agency confirmed that trained individuals could access parallel dimensions, or alternate realities, and that this capability remains a classified intelligence tool. Others propose the missing page contained conclusions so philosophically disruptive about the nature of reality that disclosure would cause social upheaval. More mundane explanations suggest the missing page contained information about sources and methods that remained classified for national security reasons, unrelated to dimensional physics, or simply that the page was lost or removed accidentally during the declassification process. Without access to the missing content, speculation continues about what might have been too sensitive to reveal. The Monroe Institute continues to offer Gateway training programs and claims thousands of participants have achieved expanded consciousness states. Some practitioners report profound experiences, including encounters with deceased loved ones, visions of future events, and travel to what they interpret as parallel dimensions or alternate realities. While these experiences are subjective and difficult to verify scientifically, they represent a consistent pattern of reports suggesting consciousness might interact with reality in ways conventional neuroscience does not explain. From a scientific perspective, the Gateway process remains controversial. Mainstream neuroscience explains altered states of consciousness, including those induced by binaural beats, as neurological phenomena occurring entirely within the brain. Out-of-body experiences are interpreted as dissociative states or hallucinations, rather than genuine consciousness leaving the body. The philosophical implications about reality being a hologram, while intellectually interesting, are not empirically testable. However, the CIA's serious investigation of these techniques and the sophisticated theoretical analysis in the declassified report indicate that at least some elements of the national security community considered dimensional access through consciousness worthy of study. Whether the Gateway process represents a genuine method for human awareness to transcend space-time limitations or is an elaborate system of meditation-induced hallucinations remains one of the fascinating questions at the intersection of consciousness research and dimensional physics. Experiment number 7. Skinwalker Ranch Experiments, 1990s to present. Skinwalker Ranch in Utah has been the site of alleged paranormal activity and scientific investigation for decades. In the 1990s, billionaire Robert Bigelow purchased the property and established the National Institute for Discovery Science to study reported phenomena, including UFO sightings, poltergeist activity, and sightings of cryptids. Researchers at the ranch documented strange electromagnetic anomalies, spatial distortions, and phenomena, suggesting the property might be a location where the boundaries between dimensions are thin. Some experiments conducted at the ranch allegedly opened temporary portals through which unknown entities entered our reality. The ranch is located in the Uinta Basin of northeastern Utah, near the town of Ballard. The property covers approximately 500 acres of Utah high desert. The area has a long history in Navajo legend as being cursed ground associated with the Skinwalker, a malevolent, shape-shifting witch from Native American mythology. Local residents, including members of the nearby Ute tribe, have long avoided the area due to its reputation for strange occurrences. The modern story of Skinwalker Ranch begins in 1994, when Terry and Gwen Sherman purchased the property intending to raise cattle. Almost immediately, the Sherman family experienced phenomena they could not explain. They reported seeing large UFOs over the property, sometimes hovering at low altitude. Strange lights would appear at night, performing maneuvers no known aircraft could accomplish. The Shermans encountered unusual animals, including a wolf that seemed impervious to bullets, and a creature that looked like a massive wolf-like animal, but walked upright. The most disturbing incidents involved their cattle. Bulls would disappear from locked pens, leaving no trace. Other cattle were found mutilated with surgical precision organs removed and blood completely drained, yet no tracks or evidence of human activity around the carcasses. The Shermans observed balls of light that seemed to follow them and experienced poltergeist-like activity in their home, including objects moving on their own and phantom voices. After less than 2 years, the Sherman family sold the property to Robert Bigelow's National Institute for Discovery Science. Bigelow, aerospace entrepreneur and founder of Bigelow Aerospace, was personally interested in UFOs and paranormal phenomena. He invested millions of dollars to study Skinwalker Ranch scientifically, hoping to document and understand the reported anomalies. NIDS assembled a team of scientists, including physicists, biologists, and security personnel, to maintain continuous observation of the property. The NIDS team documented numerous strange occurrences over several years of investigation. They recorded unusual electromagnetic fields that appeared and disappeared without explanation. Instruments detected spatial distortions suggesting localized warping of spacetime. On multiple occasions, researchers observed what they described as windows or portals opening briefly in midair. These distortions appeared as shimmering areas of space, through which the team could see what looked like other landscapes or environments. One particularly well-documented incident involved NIDS researchers observing a portal manifestation from which a large creature emerged. The entity was described as humanoid, but not quite human, with strange proportions and movements. The creature crossed the field and approached a locked pen containing cattle. Despite the security team responding immediately, the entity vanished before they could get close. When they checked the cattle pen, they found it still locked, but one animal had vanished entirely, leaving no trace of how it was removed. The ranch became associated with theories about interdimensional portals or gateways. Some researchers proposed that certain locations on Earth, including Skinwalker Ranch, might be natural weak points in spacetime, where the boundaries between dimensions are thinner than normal. These locations could act as portals, allowing entities from other dimensions to occasionally cross into our reality. The electromagnetic anomalies might be byproducts of dimensional rifts or could be signatures of technologies used by interdimensional visitors. Experiments conducted at the ranch included attempts to trigger or detect portal manifestations. Researchers set up electromagnetic field generators to see if artificial fields would interact with the natural anomalies. They placed observation equipment at locations where phenomena had been previously reported, trying to capture dimensional breaches on instrumentation. Some experiments allegedly succeeded in triggering responses with equipment detecting unusual readings or visual phenomena occurring after activation of certain frequencies. The NIDS research remained largely classified during the active investigation period. Bigelow was protective of the data and findings, sharing information only with select scientists and government agencies. In 2004, NIDS was dissolved, and the ranch's research activities decreased, though security and monitoring continued. The secrecy surrounding the research fueled speculation about what had been discovered and whether government agencies had taken over the investigation. In 2008, Bigelow sold Skinwalker Ranch to a shell corporation. The property remained closed to the public, and research activities continued, though details were even less available than during the NIDS years. Rumors circulated that the Pentagon had become involved, possibly through the Defense Intelligence Agency's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, which Bigelow's company contracted with for UFO and paranormal research. In 2020, Skinwalker Ranch was purchased by Utah real estate developer Brandon Fugall, who has been more open about the property's phenomena. Fugall allowed a documentary television series to be filmed at the ranch, bringing public attention to ongoing investigations. The show documents various experiments and anomalies, including radiation spikes, GPS malfunctions, and what appears to be an object underground that disrupts equipment and possibly represents a dimensional portal or technological artifact. Scientific teams working at the ranch under Fugall's ownership have deployed advanced monitoring equipment, including radiation detectors, spectrum analyzers, and ground-penetrating radar. They have documented measurable anomalies, including radiation levels that spike suddenly without source electromagnetic interference, that affects instruments, and GPS coordinates that shift impossibly, suggesting space-time distortions. These documented phenomena go beyond anecdotal reports, providing quantifiable data that demands explanation. Skeptics argue that many reported phenomena at Skinwalker Ranch could have conventional explanations. UFO sightings might be misidentified aircraft or natural atmospheric phenomena. Electromagnetic anomalies could result from equipment malfunction or local geology affecting instruments. The psychological effects of suggestion and expectation might cause researchers to interpret mundane events as paranormal. The high level of secrecy makes independent verification impossible. However, the consistency of reports across decades and multiple investigating teams suggest something genuinely anomalous occurs at this location. Whether the phenomena represent interdimensional portals, extraterrestrial activity, secret military testing, or unknown natural processes, Skinwalker Ranch has become ground zero for serious scientific investigation of possible dimensional boundaries. The ranch remains one of the few locations where experiments attempting to detect or interact with other dimensions are conducted with significant funding, institutional support, and professional scientific methodology. If portals to other dimensions can be accessed, studied, and understood, Skinwalker Ranch may provide the evidence that forces mainstream science to accept the reality of parallel worlds beyond our own. Experiment number 8. Soviet Psychotronic Research, 1960s to 1980s. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union conducted extensive research into psychic phenomena and consciousness alteration under the banner of psychotronics. Declassified reports and defector testimonies describe experiments where Soviet scientists attempted to use human consciousness enhanced by technological devices to manipulate physical reality and potentially access parallel dimensions. These experiments allegedly included remote viewing telepathy and attempts to project consciousness into alternate realities or other planes of existence. While much remains classified, what has been revealed suggests the Soviets took seriously the possibility that consciousness could interact with dimensions beyond our normal perception. Soviet interest in psychic phenomena and consciousness research can be traced to the early 1960s, when reports of American research into extrasensory perception reached Soviet intelligence agencies. The Soviets worried they were falling behind in a potential psychic arms race and initiated their own programs to study and develop paranormal capabilities for military and intelligence purposes. Unlike American programs, which tended to be relatively small and operated with skepticism, Soviet psychotronic research received substantial funding and institutional support. The term psychotronics itself is of Czech origin, coined by researcher Zdeněk Radák to describe devices that purportedly could amplify psychic abilities or interact with human consciousness. Soviet scientists adopted the term and expanded research into various aspects of consciousness technology interfaces. Soviet psychotronic research encompassed several areas, including biological field detection, telepathic communication, psychokinesis, and consciousness projection into remote locations or alternate states of reality. One major focus involved developing what Soviets called psychotronic generators devices that supposedly could project thought forms or consciousness influence over distance. These generators allegedly combined electronic components with biological materials or consciousness-focusing techniques. Soviet researchers claimed these devices could affect the thoughts, emotions, or physical health of targeted individuals without direct physical contact. While such claims sound like science fiction, they were taken seriously enough to receive military research funding. The dimensional aspect of Soviet psychotronics involved experiments in consciousness projection beyond normal space-time. Some researchers theorized that human consciousness was not limited to the brain, but extended into additional dimensions or fields that physics had not yet measured. By training individuals and enhancing their abilities with technology, the Soviets hoped to enable operatives to project their awareness into these extended dimensions, accessing information, or influencing events across space and time. One documented program involved training psychics to perform remote viewing, seeing distant locations without physically traveling there. Soviet remote viewers were tasked with gathering intelligence on American military installations, secret weapons programs, and other classified information. The most successful practitioners claimed they could project their consciousness not just to distant physical locations, but into alternate timelines or parallel dimensions where different versions of events were occurring. If these claims were accurate, Soviet psychics were accessing dimensional information unavailable through conventional espionage. Research facilities studying psychotronics operated in several Soviet cities, including Moscow, Leningrad, and secret military installations in Siberia. These facilities combined traditional psychology and neuroscience with unconventional research into consciousness fields and psychic abilities. Scientists attempted to measure biological fields around humans using specialized equipment, hoping to detect the energetic signatures of consciousness extending beyond the physical body into higher dimensions. Major General Nikolai Alexeyev was among the Soviet military officers who took psychotronic research seriously. Alexeyev oversaw programs investigating whether psychic abilities could provide operational advantages in warfare. Soviet military doctrine considered the possibility that psychotronic weapons influencing enemy soldiers mentally from a distance might be more effective than conventional weapons. Research explored whether consciousness projection into enemy command centers could gather intelligence or even influence decision-making processes. The Soviets also investigated psychotronic defense, determining whether facilities or individuals could be shielded from psychic attack. If consciousness could project into alternate dimensions or influence reality remotely, then defenses would be needed against enemies using similar capabilities. Some facilities were reportedly built with special shielding materials or geometric designs intended to block psychotronic influence, reflecting Soviet concerns that such abilities were real and required countermeasures. After the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, some researchers and defectors from psychotronic programs shared information about what had been discovered. Former Soviet scientists described experiments where trained psychics apparently contacted entities existing in dimensions beyond normal space. These entities, sometimes identified as interdimensional beings or advanced consciousnesses, reportedly shared information with Soviet researchers about the nature of reality and consciousness. Whether these encounters represented genuine contact with other dimensional life forms or were hallucinations and psychological experiences remains debated. Russian scientist Vladimir Poponin, who worked on psychotronic research, described experiments where human consciousness appeared to interact with quantum systems in ways conventional physics could not explain. These experiments suggested consciousness might be a fundamental aspect of reality that transcends normal spacetime, operating in dimensional structures that physics is only beginning to theorize. Poponin's work drew on quantum mechanics and the emerging field of consciousness studies, proposing that awareness might be rooted in dimensions beyond the familiar, 3 of space and 1 of time. Declassified CIA documents from the Cold War era show American intelligence was aware of Soviet psychotronic research and concerned about potential breakthroughs. The CIA initiated its own consciousness research programs, including remote viewing initiatives like Project Stargate, partly in response to Soviet efforts. This psychic arms race between superpowers indicates that at the highest levels of government, serious consideration was given to the possibility that consciousness could transcend physical limitations and potentially access other dimensions. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, much psychotronic research continued in post-Soviet Russia, though with reduced funding and less coordination. Private research institutes and individual scientists maintained programs investigating consciousness and dimensional physics. Some former Soviet researchers relocated to Western countries, bringing their knowledge and techniques with them. The legacy of Soviet psychotronics influenced consciousness research globally, though it remains on the fringes of mainstream science. Critics argue Soviet psychotronic research was pseudoscience that produced no genuine results and wasted resources. Skeptics note that psychic abilities have never been demonstrated under controlled scientific conditions, and that Cold War fears led to investigation of paranormal claims that had no factual basis. The secrecy surrounding much research makes verification impossible and allows for exaggerated claims about what was discovered. However, the scale and seriousness with which Soviet military and scientific institutions approached psychotronic research suggest they believed consciousness-based capabilities were achievable. Whether the Soviets discovered genuine methods for consciousness to transcend spacetime and access other dimensions, or whether they pursued a fruitless path based on misunderstanding and wishful thinking, the programs represent one of the most ambitious attempts to experimentally investigate dimensional aspects of reality and consciousness. The full truth about Soviet psychotronic research and any breakthroughs achieved may remain classified in Russian archives, inaccessible to researchers seeking to understand what one superpower discovered about consciousness dimensions and the possibility of mental access to alternate realities. Experiment number 9, Tesla Resonance, Experiments, 1980s to 1990. Building on his earlier work, Canadian experimenter John Hutchison conducted a series of experiments in the 1980s and 90s, specifically attempting to replicate and extend Nikola Tesla's research into resonance and standing waves. Hutchison claimed that by generating specific resonance frequencies, he could create localized spatial anomalies that exhibited properties suggesting dimensional overlaps or breaches. Objects placed in these resonance fields allegedly displayed impossible behaviors, including passing through solid matter and briefly vanishing from normal space. While controversial, these experiments represent one of the few attempts to systematically study alleged dimensional effects in a laboratory setting. Nikola Tesla's original work in the late 1800s and early 1900s explored the concept of resonance, the idea that everything has a natural frequency at which it vibrates most efficiently. Tesla demonstrated that by matching the resonant frequency of an object with an external vibration source, the object would oscillate with increasing amplitude. Tesla famously claimed he could use resonance to shake buildings apart or even split the Earth, though these claims were never demonstrated and may have been exaggerations. Tesla's theories extended beyond mechanical resonance to electromagnetic resonance and the resonance of space itself. He proposed that space might have resonant frequencies and that by generating the right electromagnetic patterns, it might be possible to tap into vast energy sources or even affect the fabric of space-time. While Tesla's more extraordinary claims were not pursued by mainstream science, they inspired generations of experimenters to explore whether resonance could produce effects conventional physics did not predict. John Hutchison became fascinated with Tesla's resonance concepts and attempted to recreate Tesla's experiments using modern equipment. Hutchison combined Tesla coils, which generate high-voltage alternating current, with signal generators that could produce precise frequencies. He would operate multiple devices simultaneously, creating a complex electromagnetic environment with many overlapping frequencies and standing wave patterns. Hutchison theorized that somewhere in this chaotic resonance spectrum, certain combinations would match dimensional frequencies, causing observable effects. In the 1980s, Hutchison reported achieving what he called resonance-induced spatial anomalies. Objects placed in specific locations in his laboratory, where multiple standing waves intersected, would exhibit strange behaviors. Metal objects would appear to become soft and pliable at room temperature, allowing them to be bent or deformed without heat. Different materials would fuse together, passing through each other as if they occupied the same space simultaneously. These effects suggested matter was behaving as if normal spatial boundaries had broken down. Most dramatically, Hutchison captured on video what appeared to be objects phasing through solid barriers. A metal rod would be placed against a wall, and as the resonance equipment operated, the rod would appear to sink into the wall, penetrating the solid surface. When the equipment was turned off, the rod would remain partially embedded, as if it had achieved quantum tunneling on a macroscopic scale. Skeptics argued these effects could be achieved with trick photography, but Hutchison insisted the videos documented genuine phenomena. Hutchison proposed a theoretical explanation based on dimensional physics. He suggested that Tesla's resonance concept applied not just to physical objects, but to the dimensional structure of space-time itself. Every point in space might have a resonant frequency, and by generating electromagnetic standing waves at those frequencies, it would be possible to create localized dimensional instabilities. In these unstable regions, the boundaries between our three-dimensional space and adjacent dimensions would become permeable, allowing matter to briefly transition between dimensional states. According to this theory, objects in the resonance field were not actually passing through solid matter in the conventional sense. Instead, they were taking dimensional shortcuts, moving through higher dimensional space, where the solid barrier did not exist, then re-entering our dimension on the other side. This would explain how penetration could occur without damage to either the object or the barrier. The matter was avoiding collision by using dimensions we normally cannot access. The fusion of different materials could be explained similarly. When two objects were brought into contact in a dimensional instability, their atomic structures might interact through dimensional space rather than normal three-dimensional space. Atoms that appear separated in our dimension might be adjacent when viewed through higher dimensional geometry, allowing molecular bonding to occur between substances that normally would not chemically react. The result would be materials merged in ways metallurgy cannot explain. Hutchison also reported objects vanishing completely from view when exposed to certain resonance patterns. These disappearances lasted only seconds before the object would reappear, but during the interval, the object was literally not present in our observable space. Hutchison theorized these objects were shifting entirely into an adjacent dimension, remaining there briefly before the resonance pattern changed, and they returned to normal space. If verified, this would represent the first controlled creation of macroscopic dimensional portals. The scientific community reacted to Hutchison's resonance experiments with extreme skepticism. Mainstream physicists noted that the effects violated established laws of thermodynamics and conservation of energy. For matter to pass through barriers or shift between dimensions would require mechanisms unknown to physics and energies, far beyond what Hutchison's equipment could generate. Attempts by others to replicate the experiments using similar setups consistently failed to produce the reported effects. Hutchison defended his work by arguing that the precise configuration of equipment and the specific frequencies used were critical to producing the effects. He claimed that even small variations in setup or frequency would prevent the phenomena from occurring. This explanation was scientifically unsatisfying because it made the effects essentially unreproducible in practice, even if theoretically possible. Science requires experiments to be repeatable by independent researchers, but Hutchison's resonance effects remained stubbornly unique to his laboratory. Some researchers sympathetic to Hutchison suggested that, even if the specific effects he reported were not genuine, the underlying concept of using resonance to affect spacetime might have validity. Quantum mechanics acknowledges that particles can tunnel through barriers and that quantum fields have vacuum energy. Perhaps at macroscopic scales, under very specific conditions, electromagnetic resonance could amplify quantum effects, allowing phenomena usually limited to atomic scales to become visible. This theoretical framework would require revolutionary new physics, but might not be impossible. The potential implications of verified Tesla resonance effects on dimensional access would be profound. If objects could be made to shift between dimensions through electromagnetic resonance, it would open possibilities for energy extraction from higher dimensions, communication across dimensional boundaries, or even transportation through dimensional space. The military applications alone would be revolutionary, making conventional barriers and defenses obsolete. Hutchison's Tesla resonance experiments in the 80s and 90s represent one of the most detailed attempts to create dimensional anomalies through electromagnetic means. Whether the documented effects were genuine dimensional phenomena, clever tricks, or misinterpretations of mundane occurrences remains unresolved. The experiments did not convince mainstream science, but they inspired continued speculation about whether the right combination of frequencies and fields might allow us to peel back the dimensional boundaries and glimpse the hidden structures of reality that Tesla speculated existed. Until rigorous replication is achieved, the Tesla resonance approach to dimensional access remains in the category of tantalizing possibilities rather than established science. Experiment number 10. Quantum Eraser Delayed Choice, 2000 to present. The Quantum Eraser Delayed Choice experiment is a genuine physics experiment conducted at universities worldwide that has produced results some interpret as suggesting the existence of parallel realities or multiple dimensions. The experiment demonstrates that decisions made in the present can apparently affect outcomes of events that occurred in the past. While mainstream physics explains this through quantum mechanics and the nature of observation, some researchers have proposed that the results indicate we live in a multiverse where different versions of experiments occur in parallel dimensions, and our observations determine which dimension we experience. The quantum eraser experiment builds on the famous double-slit experiment that demonstrates the wave-particle duality of quantum mechanics. In the basic double-slit experiment, individual particles, such as photons or electrons, are fired at a barrier with two slits. When both slits are open, and we do not measure which slit each particle passes through an interference pattern emerges on a detection screen. The pattern indicates the particles are behaving as waves passing through both slits simultaneously and interfering with themselves. But when we measure which slit a particle passes through, the interference pattern disappears, and particles behave as discrete objects passing through one slit or the other. This strange behavior suggests that the act of measurement or observation affects the fundamental nature of reality. As long as we do not know which path a particle took, it exists in a quantum superposition, traveling both paths at once. The moment we gain which path information, the superposition collapses, and the particle must have traveled one specific path. This observer effect is central to quantum mechanics and has profound implications for the nature of reality. The delayed choice variation of the double-slit experiment was proposed by physicist John Wheeler. In this version, the decision about whether to measure which path information is made after the particle has already passed through the slits, but before it hits the detection screen. Remarkably, the results show that even this delayed decision affects whether an interference pattern appears. If we choose to measure which path the particle took after it has passed the slits, the interference pattern disappears, suggesting the particle retroactively traveled only one path. If we choose not to measure which path information, the interference pattern appears, suggesting the particle traveled both paths. This implies that our present choices can influence past events at least at the quantum level. The particle seems to behave differently in the past, based on measurements we choose to make in the future. This time-reversed causality is deeply counterintuitive and challenges our understanding of cause and effect. The quantum eraser experiment adds another layer of strangeness. In this setup, which path information is recorded, but then erased before we look at it. The experiment shows that whether we can potentially know which path a particle took, even if we never actually look, determines whether interference appears. If the which path information exists, but we erase it before reading it, the interference pattern reappears as if the particle traveled both paths. But if the information still exists, even though we have not looked at it, no interference pattern forms. This suggests that quantum reality is determined not by what we actually observe, but by what information potentially exists to be observed. The universe seems to know whether which path information is available and adjusts particle behavior accordingly. This implies that information itself plays a fundamental role in determining physical reality, perhaps even more important than actual observation. Several interpretations of these experimental results have been proposed. The Copenhagen interpretation treats measurement as fundamentally collapsing quantum superpositions with no deeper explanation needed. The universe simply behaves this way, and we must accept the observer effect as a brute fact. This interpretation avoids discussions of parallel dimensions or time travel, but offers little insight into why measurement has such dramatic effects on reality. The many worlds interpretation proposed by Hugh Everett suggests that quantum superpositions never truly collapse. Instead, every possible outcome of a quantum measurement occurs in separate branches of reality. When a particle reaches the double-slit barrier, the universe splits. In one branch, the particle goes through the left slit, while in another branch, it goes through the right slit. Interference patterns emerge from interactions between these parallel branches. When we measure which path was taken, we become entangled with one particular branch, losing access to interference between branches. Under the many worlds view, the quantum eraser experiment demonstrates that our present choices determine which branch of reality we consciously experience. When we choose to erase which path information, we remain in superposition across multiple branches, allowing us to detect interference. When we choose to preserve which path information, we become committed to one branch, losing the ability to see interference from other branches. The past does not change, but our measurement choices determine which version of the past we inhabit. Some physicists have proposed even more radical interpretations, suggesting the quantum eraser results indicate consciousness plays a direct role in creating reality. The universe might be participatory with conscious observation, literally bringing specific outcomes into existence from quantum possibilities. Under this view, we do not simply discover pre-existing reality, but actively create it through our choices about what to measure and observe. This interpretation has philosophical implications about free will, the nature of time, and the relationship between mind and matter. From a dimensional physics perspective, the quantum eraser results could indicate that multiple versions of reality exist simultaneously in parallel dimensions. Each possible path a particle could take represents a different dimensional branch. When we do not measure which path was taken, the particle exists across multiple dimensions simultaneously, allowing interference between dimensional states. When we measure or preserve which path information, we force the particle into a single dimensional branch, and interference vanishes because we no longer have access to other dimensions. The delayed choice aspect suggests that dimensional branching occurs retroactively based on future observations. The universe might not commit to a single dimensional state until absolutely necessary when a conscious observer makes a measurement that forces a choice. Until that moment, all dimensional versions coexist in superposition. This implies reality has a fluid nature, with the past remaining uncertain until it is observed and recorded by conscious beings. Quantum eraser experiments have been replicated at universities worldwide, with consistent results, confirming the bizarre time-reversed correlation between measurement choices and particle behavior. These are not fringe experiments, but mainstream quantum physics demonstrating effects that demand explanation. While interpretations vary, the experimental facts are undisputed. Present choices really do correlate with past particle behavior in ways that challenge classical notions of causality and suggest reality has a flexible dimensional structure. The philosophical implications are staggering. If the universe branches into parallel dimensions for every quantum event, then countless versions of reality exist in parallel. Every choice we make, every quantum interaction creates new dimensional branches. We experience one branch, but alternate versions of ourselves exist in other branches, experiencing different outcomes. The quantum eraser suggests we might be able to select which branch we experience through our measurement choices. Whether quantum mechanics reveals the existence of literal parallel dimensions accessible through consciousness and measurement, or whether these interpretations are philosophical speculations beyond what the mathematics requires, remains debated among physicists. But the quantum eraser delayed choice experiment stands as genuine, reproducible scientific evidence that reality behaves in ways suggesting dimensional structure. Of all the experiments exploring possible connections to other dimensions or parallel realities, the quantum eraser is the only one conducted with scientific rigor and confirmed by mainstream physics. If humanity ever develops the ability to intentionally access parallel dimensions or alternate realities, the theoretical foundation will likely include the insights revealed by this profound experiment, showing that observation, measurement, and consciousness play roles in determining which version of reality we experience.